Expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. We're your hosts, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome to Straight Talk. How are you today?
I'm well, my friend. How are you? I see you're in green today. Color of money, they say.
Is that what it is?
Well, that's what they say. You know, green is the color of money, but they obviously never spent a day in Cayman where our money is multicolored. Why settle for one color when you can offer up a variety?
I'm glad you chose that instead of saying a rainbow of colors.
A rainbow of colors.
That scares us.
Yes.
But either way, yes, I noticed, I looked over at you and said, by the way, now that I'm actually on air, I looked and said, what is he wearing today? Comparing things. Haircut, he's wearing a dark blue, one of my favorite colors.
Yeah.
Dark green is one of my favorite colors, by the way. I think I have at least four good colors that I like.
I don't think I have any green in my closet. But
you don't have any green?
No, I don't.
I love like the dark Christmas green.
Because, you know, you got things like St. Patrick's Day and all of that, but, you know, green is the color of St. Patty's Day. Oh, yeah. Red is the color of Valentine's Day. I don't own any green shirts. I have a green university hoodie that I've had for, 25
Sounds
years.
Like if I buy you a shirt, it has to be green, you know.
I think that might be the case.
And dark green is my preference.
Oh, that's good. Just
in case anyone out there is listening saying, hey, you know, what do I get Ellio for his birthday or Christmas or something?
I like the combination of dark green mixed with a little bit of orange. You ask why orange? Well, that's the University of Miami colors. So you put those two colors together.
You get excited.
I get really excited. Well, happy
It sounded almost like drum. I get very excited.
Very, very excited. Well, happy Tuesday to you, the listening audience. It is Tuesday. And again, another great opportunity and discussion plan for you here on the program. As always, we are broadcasting live over your radio dial 103.1 FM, but simulcasting live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. The phone lines will be open today for another open mic day on this Super Tuesday, Ellio. 745-2626 is the number, or you can reach out to us by dialing our WhatsApp number, our version of the 1-800 line that doesn't necessarily cost you anything other than your Wi-Fi. For that, you can either, first of all, give us a call, 928-2562, and from there you can either leave us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message, and either way, we will share your comments live on the air. We have some good news to talk about, and as many listeners know, first of all, welcome to all of our regular listeners, but importantly, likewise, welcome to any first-time listeners to the program. Hopefully, we each week and maybe even each day, we pick up one or two new listeners. But if you are listening for the first time, we like to start off each show.
I can guarantee you that we have new listeners every day.
Okay.
Because part of the reason why I appear to be not paying attention is because of people texting. I just text someone the link for the first time.
Oh, terrific. Well, there
so we don't have to guess anymore.
All right. Well, every day we have a new listener, at least one new listener to the program. And for those persons, we remind you that we try to start off each program with good news first before we get on to what we call the meat and potatoes of our conversation, which, again, can be subjective. Some would consider it good news. Other persons might consider it bad news. Mm-hmm. Those in the middle say, who cares? It's an important topic. Let's talk
about it. Who cares? It's news either way.
That's right, indeed. But first with the good news. We have 5 young Caymanians who have just been called to the bar. Taking a look at the media. The article says 5 article clerks called to the bar. 5 article clerks with walkers have been called to the Cayman Islands bar and have joined the law firm across several practicing groups. The 5 include Benjamin Black, Cassie Bowden, Joanna Cameron, Bianca Magoo, and Eli Sampson. Following the firm's articles of clerkship program, according to a press release from Walkers. We just want to send out a great big congratulations to all 5 of those young Caymanians for their terrific achievements. Obviously, this, I suppose, I wouldn't call it the first step. I think surviving the academic training of going to law school would be the first step. Then getting articled will be the second step. And then, of course, passing into the bar would be the third step.
And say you thought that was rough, then try getting on the job.
And then, try getting a job. Yeah, indeed.
And then it's still called a practice.
Yes, good point. So maybe after your academic scholars, then getting a job in the first place is maybe the second most important step, then articled and then called to the bar. And, of course, from there, as they say, the sky's the limit for these young persons. I'm happy to say one of these persons is a member of my family, Eli Sampson.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of read my mind. I was sitting there saying, this name Sampson. Why does this sound like is that Lloyd's?
It is. It is. Lloyd Sampson.
So I was going to ask that question. You read my mind. Once again.
Yes.
Point.
Happy to say that is also my cousin, and Eli is his son.
Awesome.
So very, very proud of
like father, like son.
Like father, like son. Very proud of young Eli. Certainly, academically, he had some tremendous grades.
Good, strong name, Eli, too.
I know he spent some time in Hong Kong, so he's a bit of a world traveler. So he's been exposed to a lot. Like I suspect, his 4 other colleagues who were certainly articled with him and called to the bar at the same time. But a very special and heartfelt congratulations going out to Eli in particular for this one fantastic milestone in his life. And likewise to his proud father, Lloyd, if you are listening, dear cousin, congratulations to you as well. As Ellio said, like father, like son.
Chip off the old block. I can hear Lloyd. Yeah, man. My son, my son.
You sound like you know the man.
I know the man.
You know the man. So, yes, we want to, again, congratulate the achievements of our young people. And certainly there are many young persons studying law in universities across the globe as well as here at home. But here are 5 who have recently been called to the bar. And we celebrate their achievements with them here on Straight Talk. There's a full article on their achievements, their backgrounds, and obviously their accomplishments. And I think it was yesterday's Cayman Compass. You can log on to caymancompass.com and read the article in its totality. But for our part, absolutely. No, where are the sound effects? Come on. 5. We haven't heard the sound effects in a while.
You are right, Austin. I have been slacking on these sound effects.
You have been.
Go ahead. Just give me a little bit of recap right on the end.
Again, 5 young Caymanians, Benjamin Black, Cassie Bowden, Joanna Cameron, Bianca Magoo, and Eli Sampson have passed the bar recently and joining the law firm Walkers in their practice. So congratulations to those 5 young Caymanians. There it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder.
You've been kind of slacking with those sound effects.
I must admit, I have been slacking. But again, we give kudos to these persons. Absolutely deserve it, and I'm sure their parents, everybody's played a part, the community. But I just want to take my hat off to the fact that, you've got is it Truman Bodden Law School? That's what it is, right?
Yes.
And then they get a degree via University of Liverpool.
Liverpool, that's correct.
And again, it just goes to show you when you take the steps to put an institution like that here in Cayman, the difference it can make.
Absolutely.
I can guarantee it would be totally different if you didn't have that law school here.
Yes.
How many persons you would see graduating, right, after doing the law, because you would be making it that much more difficult now in order for these persons to be graduating for law. So again, congratulations, even insofar as the government back in the day and the steps that were taken. And hopefully we can continue to do more things as we've done with the Truman Bodden Law School and be able to further up our whole issue about the education. Which, by the way, reminds us again, we were chatting about our friend, Dr. Livingston, there at the University College of the Cayman Islands. I want the public to know that I am reaching out to try to see if we can get him here on the program. And I think generally speaking, I think he's agreeing to that direction. But a lot of these institutions doing a great job, and I just want to take my hat off to them. And again, hat off to all those persons insofar as graduating from the law school. The handful, I think I can literally say.
Yes.
And of course, special congrats to persons that we know directly.
Yes.
Your family member and someone that I got to know. I think I really got to know a little bit about Lloyd when he first ran for office.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You know, he made a shot there, and again, congrats to him. I'm
Indeed.
sure he's a proud father. He's done a great job, and continues to do a great job in the legal realm here in Cayman as well.
He does.
And glad to see that his son is following his footsteps. And of course, my friend, his son, I don't know whose footsteps he's following, but he's going to be an engineer, right?
Yeah, it's not my footsteps. Let me tell you. I'll tell the world that. You know, I'm so glad.
Not my friend that shies away from math, etc. Son growing up to be an engineer.
That's the other thing. Yeah, math is one of his favorite subjects. Yeah, he's studying mechanical engineering, which, again, he did not get from me. But, again, his strengths in math and science, maybe he got some of that from me.
Yeah.
Maybe some of that he got from his uncle. Certainly, but in terms of the whole mechanical, putting things together and pulling them apart, that has never been my strength. I know a guy that I call, you know, I know what a hammer looks like, but don't ask me what it does. You mentioned, of course, the Truman Bodden Law School, and one of the five, Miss Cassie Bowden, received a 2022 Walker's Legal Scholarship, but she returned to school in 2021. Completed a graduate diploma in law from the University of Law, followed by the professional practice course at the Truman Bodden Law School, finishing in 2023, all while working as a paralegal.
See what I'm talking about?
We want to congratulate Cassie, as we do all five, but in Cassie's case, to your point, she obviously utilized the benefits of the Truman Bodden Law School as part of her academic ladder to achieve success. So we recognize the contributions of that local institution.
And I'll say it again because I remember having this discussion many moons ago insofar as Kim and Bracken, the fact that they talk about wanting to stimulate the economy but not necessarily wanting the sort of, you know, hustle and bustle that you have here in Cayman, Grand Cayman, that is. And I remember at the time saying, you know, why can't we look at the possibility of having a great university? Could have a university, and I think Miss Julia was already building something over there, but we could have a university. You can, again, just like how you've done with Truman Bodden, you've really got the University of Liverpool with an extension, an arm here in the Cayman Islands. You could be doing the same thing in terms of other universities, right?
Yes.
You know, Oxford could have a Cambridge and a MIT. They could have a marine biology section or whatever it is. You know, you dream it, you name it, you dream it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that these are just wonderful opportunities, and it would go a million miles about helping to educate our Caymanians, because if you just go with the story you just told, there are persons right now that would not have been able to be going to work and taking a course and advancing themselves if this was a issue that they had to be doing it long distance, either on the internet. Again, that would create a series of challenges. You're not there, even though things have gotten a lot better.
Yes.
You know, it's not pen pal days anymore. Yeah. But
online learning.
Yeah, online it's come a long way, but even more so, especially if you had to travel, right? Mm-hmm. So it just really goes to show you, having it right here on the island, you're creating so many wonderful opportunities. It just really needs to be explored by, you know, the various governments that come in. I remember back in the day when they brought the St. Matthew's University here. Mm-hmm. Again, that was a wonderful opportunity to bring in additional students here to the country. There was a case where I remember somewhat dabbling in the real estate at the time, people just renting all over the place. Mm-hmm. You couldn't find the places.
Yes.
Which, by the way, makes me ask, why did they ever make them build their own place? I have no idea. Whoosh. But the real estate, the people coming in, the investment that comes into your country just because these individuals are here, they're paying for university, they're renting, they're buying food. This is tremendous. I don't hear the numbers on this.
Right.
But this is total awesome. And then it has to be the same scenario even with the Truman Bodden Law School. I'm sure people are coming here right now and going to Truman Bodden Law School. They get that degree here, and they're spending money. They're keeping the economy going. It's just another way to keep the country going, and at the same time, perhaps most importantly, giving real opportunities for Caymanians to be able to educate themselves.
Absolutely.
I always wanted to do the law, and I should go half-day school on Fridays.
Now, law certainly has been recommended to me in the past, and like you, I think I certainly would.
I did
if
study
were-
a little bit, mind you.
If I were to ever go back to school, it certainly would be to study law, but I don't know if one has the time for it as we get, into our golden years. But who knows? Maybe there's a law degree in our somewhere
Hey.
future. We'll see what happens. We'll see what
You're never
what the
too
stars
old.
have. We're never too old. Quite right. And of course, you mentioned St. Matthew's University. Obviously, the Department of Agriculture has benefited from many of their students, particularly their School of Veterinary Services. When we used to regularly attend the Ag Show, we would oftentimes meet St. Matthew's students as part of the rodeo. I forget the name of Mr. Pandui's stables that usually runs the rodeo portion. Big shout out to Mr. Pandui and his wife. Cowboy Town Stables, that's the name of it. And obviously knowing that group and the graduates of St. Matthew's, obviously working with horses. So not only to your point, allowing continuing education to take place here in Cayman, but obviously Cayman and things like the government departments of agriculture benefiting from graduates from that university only strengthens the overall community.
And as we speak about never being too old, I'm sure there are other persons, but, right away, the Honorable Linford Pearson comes to my mind because there's an individual that served in office, did a lot of things, and as we would say, up in the ripe age, still went on to go and get a doctorate's degree and, all sorts of stuff. So
yes,
it can be done.
It can absolutely be done.
So
Speaking of graduates, earlier this month, there were also 32 students who graduated from the International College of the Cayman Islands and have been awarded degrees ranging from associate's degree to the master level degrees. The students, 84% of whom are Caymanian, were celebrated at a graduation ceremony, which was attended by the governor, the premier, and minister of education, held earlier this month at First Baptist Church. 10 students received graduate degrees, 6 with a Master of Business Administration, 2 with a Master of Science in Management with a human resources concentration, and 2 with a Master of Science in Human Resource Management. Another 15 students earned a bachelor's degree, 7 in business administration, 3 in accounting, 2 in finance, 2 in IT, and 1 in human and social services, with the remaining 7 receiving an associate's degree in science, 4 in business administration, 1 in business, 1 in accounting, and 1 in general studies. 32 overall graduating from ICCI, which is the private school arm of the UCCI campus, which is, of course, the public school arm of the tertiary education in the Cayman Islands. But certainly, congratulations to that institution. Certainly, we will remember Mrs. Elsa Cummings,
Oh, yeah.
who's the mother of our good friend April Cummings, who many persons will remember
Cayman
and recall
27.
from exactly in the media, her fantastic voice, her contributions to television in the
Still
Cayman
making a
Islands.
contribution.
She still makes a contribution, indeed. So, persons that we both grew up with back
April
in
is
the
a
day.
lovely person.
Truly, indeed. So we certainly continue to extend congratulations to ICCI, another important tertiary institution here in the Cayman Islands, providing quality education for persons here at home. As we say, not everybody has the opportunity nor the desire to fly away to universities, whether it be stateside or Europe. Many persons choosing to obviously work and go to school. Both ICCI and UCCI, I would suspect a large percentage of their student body make up that number of working professionals who are attending school, or to your point, persons who, again, maybe are later in life, but clearly have not lost the desire or hunger to learn, and obviously providing some valuable services here. We want to recognize and congratulate those 32 students who recently graduated, likewise, from the International College of the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Austin, I think one of the things is whoever the government of the day is, as in today, tomorrow, in the future, I think one of the things that needs to also be done is to do what is reasonable to make sure that these institutions get the credit they deserve and the sort of recognition and standing in the community that they deserve. Because too often, it's always a case if it's foreign, it's better, right? And that should not be the case. It's a good quality education, whether you're going to University of Liverpool, literally, or whether you're here at Truman Boding getting the same degree, and nothing different with ICCI and UCCI. And I think a lot of that is just a bit of marketing, a bit of shift in the mind, way of thinking, to make sure that these institutions and the person attending them get the exact same recognition they would get if they had flew off to the UK and attended the very same college or university.
Absolutely.
So I want to encourage this government and those in the future to do that.
No, indeed. Certainly congratulations to the 32 students who graduated from ICCI, as well as the 5 students who recently completed their article clerkship and were called to the bar to join the law firm Walkers in their formal practice. Always a thrill to celebrate young Caymanians moving up through the ranks, getting their academic training, and obviously that will hopefully mean promising careers for all of them.
It was good news today, Austin.
It was good news. What good news? We got one more bit of good news before wrapping up, but I see a caller on the line, so let's take the caller first. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. I just want to tell you that age do have a thing to do with education. I know an 85-year-old and a 95-year-old friend of ours that not long graduate in Tampa, Florida. So once you're swinging your 5 good marbles and your mobile, it's only around here that people be about age, whatever. In the States, some of them old people go old. And 2 of them, one class with my sister, and they graduate in honors.
Awesome.
So Austin, I don't know how old you is, but you're not old as me. So if you want to go back and pursue one, then to me you sound like you got a good mind frame, whatever, nothing wrong with your brains and whatever, so you can be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to be. To make age keep it on once, like I say, once you're not doping or got Alzheimer's, you can remember, and disabled that you can't move, you can still go back and do anything you want to do.
Thank
you. So don't make that, what I call it, yeah.
Thank you for that vote of confidence. I certainly do appreciate
and
it.
And there's encouraging words to everyone, right?
Yes, indeed.
Age, don't let age stop you. I want to definitely thank that caller for that.
Absolutely.
Giving a really good example, 85.
Hey, I tell you, I just say that's right. Age is no limit to, further education, as long as, the caller pointed out, as long as your mind is still bright and active, then by all means.
You see, she's onto something, right? Because many people feel it's a real issue. I mean, let's just be totally honest.
Yeah.
How many persons in their 50s, God forbid, even 60s, are going to feel comfortable to be able to say, I'm going to go to college. I'll be surrounded by a lot of young persons, but I'm going to educate myself. Right. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with that.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
And so working, even the comments like that, coming from her with actual examples, helping to remove that stigma might get some people motivated to say, hey, let me get out there.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people otherwise procrastinate with the idea. Others will say, well, I've been out of the academic realm for so long. Now I've got to get back, focus the mind to studying, writing papers, sitting exams. And I don't know if I'm ready to get back into that learning curve again. But really, at the end of the day, to the caller's point, it's just excuses. You're just putting roadblocks in your own way. If you are deciding to continue that education, really it's just a matter of choice. Once you make up your mind that this is what I'm going to pursue, then really those roadblocks that we put in our own way oftentimes fall to the wayside once we're actively involved in it.
I'm just betting that a big reason, which is again why I like what the caller had to say, is the fact that people are just embarrassed. Like I don't want to go at this age and sit in a classroom and it's going to have a bunch of 21-year-olds in there or whatever it is, and I'm going to be studying. I mean, I'm in my 50s.
Right. And
really just getting past that mentally. I think there's a lot of people that want to go back to university and do it.
I think you're right.
And it just that pride/embarrassment thing is like, how am I going to look at 50, 60 years old and I'm sitting up in here with the young ones, doing the education.
That's right. Well, it is 57 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, and in about a minute, 40 seconds, we'll have to pause and go off to the BBC top of the hour news. And then when we return, we move on to, I think, our primary topics all week. And of course, part of last week, well, I say all week, this is only the second day of this week. But certainly last week, we started the conversation about the airport's master plan development, consisting of the 4 major airport projects that are outlined in their outline business case, an airport master plan. In the media, they have been focusing, it appears, on at least one project per day. Yesterday, of course, we talked about the proposals put forward for the Charles Colonel International Airport. In today's media headlines, we see details of the Little Cayman proposal, which will give us an opportunity to touch on.
And just about in, that reminds me that there was somebody raising a question to me, right, about the issue about flooding. So I should talk about that when we come back.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, because also yesterday we got the recommendation, or a text came in and said, you know what, maybe one of the reasons why people aren't commenting is because they're waiting on the environmental impact assessment in which to guide their opinions. But I want to say, because I thought about this last night as well, there's a lot of environmental risks that we know of already that certainly can, encourage conversation. I want to pick up on that also when we come back. So keep it locked. You're listening to Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. We'll be right back after these brief messages from the BBC.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes. Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, this is the BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. Palestinians have stormed an aid distribution hub in Gaza, backed by the US and Israel, that had just started operating near the city of Rafah. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said it had managed to hand out 8,000 food boxes before the centre was overrun by crowds far larger than it had anticipated. The Israeli military said its soldiers fired warning shots near the compound, but operations had returned to normal. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu acknowledged there had been problems with the operation.
There was some loss of control momentarily. Happily, we brought it back under control. We're going to put many more of these. And the idea is basically to take away the humanitarian looting as a tool of war of Hamas, to give it to the population, eventually to have a sterile zone in the south of Gaza where the entire population can move for its own protection.
Texas, the U.S.'s second most populous state, has passed a new law requiring Apple and Google to verify the age of their users on their app stores. Starting next year, anyone under 18 will need a parent's approval to download apps or make in-app purchases. Apple and Google have opposed the bill. Social media platforms such as Meta, X and Snap have welcomed it, alongside child online safety groups. The bodies of 11 people have been found on a boat washed up on a beach in the Caribbean country of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Police say an investigation is underway. Jacob Evans has more details.
An abandoned boat measuring just 14 metres long and 3.5 metres across was spotted on the shore of one of St. Vincent and the Grenadines' tiny islands. Inside, the authorities say they found 11 severely decomposed bodies, along with several passports believed to be from Mali. Where the boat came from is yet to be confirmed, but in recent years, small vessels known as ghost boats have reached the Caribbean carrying the remains of desperate migrants.
King Charles has delivered a speech in English and French at the opening of the Canadian Parliament. The King, who's Canada's head of state, said Canadians were facing changes that are unprecedented in their lifetimes. The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney invited the King after his recent general election victory. Our chief North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue, watched the speech.
There was a direct quote about the United States and Canada seeking a new kind of relationship on security, one based on mutual respect and shared values. But around that, there was some very careful language talking about Canada looking for other reliable trading partners in the world, suggesting that perhaps it doesn't have the ones it used to have. Canadians feeling anxiety about the situation, and also that they have more to offer themselves than foreign powers could offer them.
This is the latest world news from the BBC. A senior White House official has said the Trump administration will ask all federal agencies to review grants to Harvard University. The move could see the cancellation of contracts worth about $100 million. President Trump is locked in an escalating feud with Harvard, which accuses him of threatening its academic independence. He says the university is refusing to tackle anti-Semitism on campus, an allegation it denies. An Argentine judge presiding over the trial of Diego Maradona's medical staff has agreed to stand down after being accused of secretly taking part in a documentary about the case. Judge Julieta McIntosh denied authorising the presence of a film crew inside the court and said she'd been misled. The trial began in March, more than 4 years after the footballing great died at home aged 60. Maradona's medical team have been charged with negligence and homicide. Lawyers representing the Maradona family had called for the judge's removal. The South African actor Presley Chwenechai, who gained international recognition for his leading role in the 2005 film Tsotsi, has died at the age of 40. The film won South Africa's first ever Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. Mr. Chwenechai's award-winning performance catapulted him to international stardom and a career which spanned theatre, television and film. A large container ship that ran aground and almost crashed into a fjordside house in Norway last week has been refloated. Johan Helberg, the house owner, had this to say after he watched the ship being pulled back into the water.
I doubt I'll ever experience anything quite like this again. I wouldn't have traded this experience for anything. I wish more people could experience something like this. Get a ship in your garden and you'll find life worth living.
BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook with your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. The phone lines are open at 745-2626, or you can also join us by calling our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, obviously, you can leave us a WhatsApp audio note or a WhatsApp traditional text message. A great big hello to all of our regular listeners, as well as any of our first-time listeners to the program. Welcome to Straight Talk. A reminder that we broadcast every weekday evening Monday through Friday from 4:30 to 6:30 right here on Bobo FM. Ellio, as we move on to our primary topic, as we noted during the break, today we focus, or continue our focus rather, on the airport's master development plan, with a focus on the plans proposed for the Edward Bodden Airfield in Little Cayman. According to media reports today, if approved, construction of the new Little Cayman Airport could begin by next year and potentially could be operational by 2028. Just a few quick excerpts before we start talking about it. If the plan goes ahead, the Edward Bodden Airfield by Blossom Village would be closed, and a new airport on government-owned land near the Booby Pond Nature Reserve and Rookery. The airfield currently operates under an exemption that has been granted annually since 2003 by the Civil Aviation Authority of the Cayman Islands, which permits Cayman Airways Twin Otter aircraft to be the only commercial aircraft that is allowed to land and fly out of Little Cayman. According to the Cayman Islands Airport Authority, in order to adhere to International Civil Aviation Organization standards, it must relocate or modify the existing airdrome to meet international regulations, and that the Civil Aviation Authority has confirmed that this practice of exemption will not continue unless steps are taken to achieve full and formal certification. There is an urgent need, officials say, for these works to be carried out in order to maintain air service to the island. Again, the proposal calls for closing the existing airport and building a new airport, including airside and landside infrastructure, that is terminal buildings, as well as runway and ramps, including the RESA, the runway safety area, to cater for the most likely forecasted growth in aircraft movements and passengers, build to meet all applicable regulatory requirements and standards. The first thing that will proceed on this project, as will proceed on all of the airport projects, Owen Robert International included, and the Captain Charles Kirkconnell International Airport in Cayman Brac, will be an environmental impact assessment. The environmental impact assessment is expected to cost the country, on Little Cayman side, about $1.4 million, with a total of potentially up to $55 million before financing costs to build both the airside and the landside infrastructure. Now, one of the questions we raised yesterday was, Little Cayman, of other properties, much like the Edward Bodden Airfield, where another airport and necessary infrastructure could be built. But the officials have stated that there is government-owned land near the Booby Pond Nature Reserve and Rookery, on which in many cases are endangered species. We certainly know of the threat of bird strikes that are common in most commercial airports, particularly those that are near bird nesting sites. So not only is that an added risk, but we compound it by the fact that the birds in that rookery are all endangered species birds. So obviously the environmental impact assessment will want to look at the proximity of this aircraft to that rookery. But just a cursory search on Google, and certainly you will know that Little Cayman, 74%, as much as 74, almost 75%, I learned this today, of Little Cayman's marine habitat sits in protected areas. So they're looking to protect things like sharks, stingrays. Yesterday we talked about the green turtle and the hawksbill turtle. All of these are protected in Little Cayman. Likewise, we add to it, there's grouper populations, big spawning grounds in Cayman Brac, and of course, to a lesser extent, the common iguana and the rock iguana in particular, which is found on Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, are also considered endangered species, but are found in great quantity in Little Cayman. I just presume at the top of my head that all of these flora and fauna, if you will, stand to be negatively impacted by any airport expansion plans. And certainly, again, we offer it up to the listening audience to, share their comments on it. But Little Cayman has oftentimes been, said as the eco-preserve of all three Cayman Islands. Certainly Cayman Brac also falls into that category. And if I remember correctly, and this is going back previous years now, when we're talking about the Plan Cayman or our national development plan, our tourism plan, many persons say that the tourism plan for the sister islands should focus on eco-tours because of the largely untouched nature of both the sister islands versus the commercially, sort of approach has been taken here on Grand Cayman that unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, more favors North America, Florida's South Beach style of tourism, mass tourism, as compared to the sister islands where many persons have expressed, again, a desire to preserve it and potentially offer eco-tours as a balance to our tourism offering. Your thoughts?
Well, and again, I say this with all the gravity, the seriousness that it deserves. I think that when I listen to that, one of the things that immediately stands out to me is the organization, the Civil Aviation, saying that there's exemptions that are being made insofar as the airport, if you like, in Little Cayman. And if I get this wrong, then I obviously stand to be corrected. But what that seems to be saying to me is, let's understand that where we are landing these planes and people are embarking and disembarking, getting on and getting off of this plane, doesn't meet a certain standard. And why is this an important issue?
Mm-hmm.
Again, as we had similar discussions in relation to cruise, it is a similar situation now because you're saying one of the leading things, I'm sure, is safety. If you are allowing planes to land, it's kind of like we picture the movies, the plane landing on a little dirt road somewhere, and it's so quaint and it's so cute.
Yes.
But the reality of it is that you're taking a tremendous amount of risk. That's not where planes and how planes should be landing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you're doing a drug run, you can get away with that, right? But under normal circumstances where people are paying a ticket, to arrive safely, you need to have certain standards. And you cannot wait until, and you have to mitigate the risk. So you want to talk about the preservation of Little Cayman. I think I saw one of those persons, it might have been Mr. Manzanares, who was, talking about his trip to Little Cayman and how he had to get the gas with the key to open it up and take a picture. And he was talking about how cute this was, and that is all fine. But in this particular case, you have to mitigate the risk. You have to look at this and say, what are the problems that stand in the way? Like one of the examples, let me just give a very simplistic example. If I say to you, Austin, or the general public, I need you to walk from here to East End. Well, we can assume that assuming you get the water, assuming you have food, you can make the trip. What you have to do is just remove the risk. Mm-hmm. If you remove all of these risks, you will reach your destination. And in this particular case, there is a serious risk, I would imagine, from a standpoint that something could go wrong and you're going to end up with lawsuits. You're going to end up with lawsuits against the government for even allowing these, for having these exemptions in place, allowing this to take place.
Mm-hmm.
And we can sit back and talk about being quaint and looking all pretty and stuff like that and keeping the ecological system, and that's fine. There needs to be a balance. There needs to be the sustainability. But none of us are going to be talking about that and laughing when something goes wrong, and especially if it's 5, 10, 15, 20 people that we know and we love, and we've just lost them because things weren't up to scratch. So all these things need to be taken seriously, and I don't necessarily think that it removes us from keeping Little Cayman in a sort of pristine position that we want to keep it in, as well as Cayman Brac, but at the same time having a wonderful and sterling little airport there in Little Cayman. I think that we can hit that balance.
Yes.
And I think that is the thing that I want to encourage our Caymanians to do is to say, yeah, here's what we want. We want to keep Little Cayman pristine. We want all of this, the environment, the trees, the fish. But in this particular case here, I still need to have safety in terms of this plane taking off or landing.
Indeed.
Because it could be my brother or my sister tomorrow, or my mother.
Sure.
Okay? That's how we need to look at it. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, you see, 2 iguanas ran across the airport and there was a little pebble that was pushed on there by the tortoise, and that's really what caused the plane to crash. That's just not going to cut it.
No.
It's not going to cut it. So in terms of that sort of strip and the same things taken safety with relations to boats, etc., those things just need to be done a certain way because it's the realities of the environment that we live in. We just talked about 5 new lawyers.
Yes.
Well, there'll be 5 new lawyers on this case tomorrow too. So we need to put all of these things in balance and now say we can carry this ecology forward, we can protect the environment, but at the same time, we've got a beautiful sterling little razor of an airstrip over there that's safe to take off and safe to land.
Right.
Just want to, yeah.
No, so
with that, I yield.
No, indeed. And those are the options. Do we enhance and bring the current Edward Barton Airfield up to scruff, or do we go and build an altogether new airport, both airside and landside infrastructure? To your point, the first negative downfall of course, moving the airfield would be putting it in closer proximity to the red-footed booby population, which, if my memory serves correct, and again, a quick cursory search will show that the island of Little Cayman holds the significant portion of the overall global population of the red-footed booby. At last count in 1997, an estimated 4,839 nesting pairs were counted. The reserve, the Booby Pond and Nature Reserve, is a designated Ramsar site and is a protected area managed by the National Trust for the Cayman Islands. So even without an environmental impact assessment, we can see immediately what environmental threats could be at risk by accepting and moving forward on the proposed let's go and build a new airport. And to, again, a listener's point, which I considered a cop-out, we won't comment on the environmental threats because we haven't seen an environmental impact assessment. Well, again, I call it a cop-out because in the Little Cayman context, as we've just talked about, you can see with your own eyes and certainly understand with your own mind what potential environmental threats may exist, and that would open the door for public consultation or public commentary. Likewise, at Owen Roberts International Airport, again, no environmental impact assessment, but we understand that by extending the runway some 2,100 feet into the North Sound would destroy 22 acres of marine habitat. So what is marine habitat? Or what does it look like at the end of the runway? Again, for those of us who've lived here longer than 5 minutes, we know what's there. But if you haven't, take a drive down Tropical Gardens at the very end of Tropical Gardens and then look to the left. That's the runway. The water consists of largely shallow water between 1 and I dare say 3, maybe 4 feet at its deepest point. So we know as a fact that dredging will be required. That's going to destroy habitat. And what kind of habitat? Largely, it is turtle grass. And yesterday we talked about the turtles. What do turtles eat? Turtles eat seagrass. So we are potentially destroying 22 acres of necessary food resources for the Cayman turtle, but as well as juvenile fish. We know that the shallows, and in particular the North Sound, is home not only to a number of marine protected areas from things like stingrays, like sharks, like conch, but also turtle and the like. Certainly that will be at risk in terms of, impacting the number of fish population, if you will, that make up the wider Cayman Islands. And again, we don't need an environmental impact assessment to determine what our eyes can see firsthand and our mind can determine what is potentially at risk. Likewise, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, or Grand Cayman, when you talk about expanding the runway, when you talk about bringing larger aircraft or more aircraft, you talk about the chemical concerns as carbon monoxide, as one example, sulfur dioxide as another, from the fumes from the planes now coming in. So that's got a human risk. We've got the noise and vibration that's going to be caused from the construction of a runway, particularly in Owen Roberts and Captain Charles Kirkconnell International Airport. This will impact potentially residential and businesses nearby. Again, you don't need an environmental impact assessment to tell you that these are some of the risks that persons, could suffer from. And the DOE has said, particular to Owen Roberts, that there's also the risk of noise and the increased noise, particularly at Owen Roberts International Airport, which for the most part closes down at 8 o'clock every night now. But if we're going to bring in longer haul flights, whether it be the 787 Dreamliner, we saw it yesterday, obviously Virgin Atlantic is going to be flying nonstop flights from Heathrow into Jamaica. They're going to be flying the 787, which we can't accommodate. We can barely accommodate the British Airways 777 now, but also plans include the Airbus A350, which are also wide-body aircraft. So they're going to fly in with greater frequency, perhaps throughout the night, and that's going to have an impact on residents, obviously sleep patterns in the area, just to name a few. But my point here is that we do not need an environmental impact assessment to, at the very least, offer speculative comments as it relates to what environmental threats may be impacted by this infrastructure. And I only say that, and this is where someone will say, oh, there he goes again. But a few months ago,
here you go again, Austin.
Why were we on the referendum of the cruise berthing? There was no recent environmental impact assessment on that proposal. There was no project.
Well, there was two done before.
There were two done before, but nothing recent. There was no project, no location, no costs. But whether it be environment or the project, there was no shortage of commentary in terms of what the environmental risks would be. There was no shortage of comments about what the financial costs would be in the absence of hard factual evidence that, again, even the CPR group says, listen, we can't vote on it because of the lack of information. But with that lack of information, it did nothing to slow down the amount of commentary and the imagined threats or the perceived threats that the public felt. So I asked that same public, if we had that perception on cruise in the absence of detailed, documented evidence, then how can we honestly look ourselves in the mirror and say, well, one of the reasons why I'm not commenting on the airport development is because I'm waiting for the EIA to come out, the Environmental Impact Assessment, which will guide me. How will it guide you? Do you think, just a question, do you think all these threats that we've just mentioned will somehow be ignored by the Environmental Impact Assessment, or will they be highlighted by the Environmental Impact Assessment? I presume, obviously, the latter. So if that is the case, then clearly we can still offer up some commentary, some thoughts from the community as it relates to the potential environmental risks on this project. But as we so far have seen, the public seem to have given their consent to these projects by not even raising a single threat, a single objection to the risks that obviously exist. And again, this is coming from two people in the studio who have stated, as we stated with Cruz, we support the necessary need to engage in this investment, but there are risks, whether financial or environmental, that people can comment on. But my question is, where are they?
Well, I think that your points raise some interesting questions, because one, to the person who talks about the environmental impact assessment, I think that if I want to give credence to what they're saying, I think the key thing as I see it is for persons to have a genuine open mind in relation to the projects. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that they look for a certain level of guidance. And this is where I criticize the media, for example, who you would expect to take on a level of responsibility in the guidance of that. And people look for guidance for many different reasons. Not necessarily because they're not intelligent, but maybe, again, to give good reason. They're busy during the day and they're looking for you to guide them. And I think an open mind is important because part of the issue, and I can take both sides in this, and I will, part of the issue is the fact that you will have organizations under a group, not calling any names, that will just start throwing out this concern about the booby bird and the this one and the that one, and it just gets people up into a panic. And it gets people up into thinking, oh my God, the world's going to come to an end. There was an individual that raised the issue of flooding. Now, again, I'm not 100% sure what he or she meant by the flooding issue, because it's a case of, I can assure you that I searched it up. We've got about 139 million square miles of ocean. Filling 22 acres is like a drop, one rock in a swimming pool. It won't raise the tide.
Can I encourage you to just stick a pin there just for a moment? At 28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, we do have to pause, take a short commercial break, but the conversation on the airport expansion project and, of course, an opportunity for you to call in continues next on Bobo FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Insurance matters. It gives you the confidence to live life as you should, knowing you're protected. As a leading local insurer for over 25 years, Island Heritage has a consistent track record of providing best-in-class customer service with quick and efficient claims processing. This means insurance you can rely on when you need it most. The Island Heritage Way. Visit us online at islandheritageinsurance.com today to learn more about our home, contents, motor, marine, and commercial insurance products. Go on and live your life. With Island Heritage, you can.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart Insurance.
Visit Healthcare Pharmacy's second location in Governor Square, servicing West Bay and the 7 Mile Beach Corridor with a care and professionalism you have come to expect from Healthcare Pharmacy. Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor Square also stocks a huge selection of Hallmark and shoebox greeting cards, vitamins, sunblock, last minute, and everyday needs. To refill and transfer your prescriptions, simply WhatsApp 329-7313 or visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or drop by Monday to Saturday from 9 till 6.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
We just don't understand how you can afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shedden Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
The Office Hero. To claim this title, you have to make an exceedingly wise decision. Do something that benefits staff, impresses clients, all while keeping expenses low. Are you ready to be the Office Hero? Here's what to do. Call Hughes Cleaning Service. Hughes Cleaning Service will make your office shine and you a hero. Dusting, vacuuming, windows, sanitizing, and more. Hughes expert cleaners will make your office a healthy, immaculate, impressive workspace. Call 949-0734. Visit hughes-janitorial.com. Hughes, you get more than clean.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. Powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM as we continue our discussion. Prior to the break, of course, we were chatting a little bit about the third project in the overall airports master plan involving the current plans for the relocation of the Edward Bodden Airfield in Little Cayman to a new location near the, again, what is it called? The Booby Rookery, the red-footed Booby Nature Preserve and Rookery, and certainly engaging in conversation in the absence, we admit, of a properly and scientifically created environmental impact assessment to examine what we can see with our own two eyes and reason with our own mind what some of the potential environmental threats may be as we open up the phone lines to obviously members of the public to share their thoughts. But you had a thought before it was rudely interrupted. Allow me to finish that thought.
Not rudely at all, just the way it is. So I was saying I think it's very important to have an open mind about this and just want to share my thoughts as it relates to what I've seen with respect to crews, what I see now. You know, I remember being in a situation, and let me give an analogy. I remember being in a situation with an employee, and it was males, 2 males, by the way. And you sit there and you say, why am I going to deal with the headaches when you have some of these challenges? And I remember having to say to myself, pretend for a moment and understand the definition that you are married to these two individuals.
Yep.
In the sense that it's not so easy to divorce yourself from this particular relationship. And what does that do? It causes you to have to look and search hard and work hard to find a solution that allows you to work amicably with these individuals. It may come down to a point where you have to say, no, you have to go. But if you take that approach, you will most likely find a solution. If you do not take that approach, what you're going to find very quickly is that you will very quickly work to, let me just get rid of these individuals. I can't waste my time.
Right.
And I give that example because there's a reason in the same way that we married two individuals from a religious perspective, we have a male, a female marrying one another. Because when we get into that and we understand that until death do we part, it hopefully will force us to be able to make some reforms within our own lives, etc., so that this relationship can work. Mm-hmm. And I give that as it relates to the environment. I recall during the campaign, insofar as the cruise, I had individuals or saw individuals getting on the internet and amongst other things, they talked about how beautiful the environment is, how beautiful everything is, and they specifically stated it was all good until humans got involved. Right. And those sort of statements I just don't understand it, because you're clearly saying that you see human beings as the problem. And I think that is not the sort of open-mindedness and the marriage that we need in terms of our thoughts. We need to understand that the environment, the trees, the animals, it is about the human beings that have to work. And again, this is where I'm throwing another variable. When you have persons that are leading this country in a specific direction who have millions of dollars in the piggy bank and they don't need to work, they are not going to be able to give you a good direction, most likely. You see, because it's going to be challenging for them. I don't need this. I have all the money in the world. All they need is a little place to buy food, a little place to do this, and that, and that's the end of it. But those 5 lawyers, those 5 young lawyers that are coming out are not in their position. They are in a position where I need a job. I need something to lawyer about. Mm-hmm. They need a different type of environment to grow up in.
Right.
And so having an open mind. So as I hear the discussion then about EIA, well, one, it would be great if people were to wait for the EIAs, because there were at least 2 EIAs done, for example, in relation to cruise. Almost, I'm pretty sure each costing $2 million, if not plus. And I'm sure the EIA is basically going to tell you at the end of the day, it's fine to do this project. But what we ended up with is something totally different, of which I don't think I have to labor onto that again. No. So in relation to the EIA here, I am relatively confident that if the EIA comes out, I am sure that the government of the day, in the future, wherever, is going to have a clear matrix that are going to say there are certain things that has to be met. And if it is not met, we cannot move forward with the project. I don't see any government doing otherwise. But that said, if you wait for the EIA and don't allow persons with their own agenda, whether they have money or they don't, pushing it in a way that gets people riled up, because that's the concern I have. Let me just show you something. You touched on boobies.
Yes.
You touched on different things. I want to tell you one of the biggest threats right now to the country in relation to the environment, in terms of these animals, the hawksbills. There's only 5 of them. In fact, you might even have 5 of them now. And it's to a point of complete extinction as it relates to the Cayman Islands. I know there's a specific word for that, but it eludes me.
Okay.
Has anything been done about that? Absolutely not. We can't even get a species conservation plan approved so that we can move forward in terms of protecting the hawksbills. But you're not hearing about that. And you're not hearing about it because the persons who are pushing their particular agenda in this country with respect to money don't give a crap about Turtle Center. They want to shut it down. And I'm saying that to you and to the persons who are listening to understand that we have to be very careful in terms of who is guiding us. I have stated it before. We can say what we want to say about politicians. We can say that they are corrupt. We can say anything we want. Start with corruption. If they are corrupt, it is people in the public who are helping them to be corrupt. A corrupt politician means you have a corrupt society. That's a fact. So in the same way, I can tell you that it is the you and me, Austin, it is the same persons listening to me that might be in office one day. And the last thing you should want is for someone to be saying you can't trust them. That the bottom line is, I believe that none of them want to destroy this country. They may do so. They may. I'm not saying they won't do it by accident.
Inadvertently.
Inadvertently, but it's not going, I doubt it's going to be deliberate.
Right.
Because I think it ever reaches that point, we'll find a way to remove them. I can assure you, quick o'clock.
Indeed.
So, and again, that's why America say we have the right to carry arms. But bottom line of it is, I don't think anyone's going to try to do that deliberately. The government will have some matrix. They will be sitting down with these companies, giving them their terms of reference and saying, if X, Y, and Z is not met, we don't go forward. Then on top of that, the companies that are doing the EIAs have a reputation. The last thing you want is to say, oh, dumping 22 acres worth of rock is perfectly fine. Absolutely nothing will happen. And for them to be all over the news tomorrow on a terrible project that they spearheaded in terms of their consultation and point the country in the wrong direction. They don't want that either from a reputational risk perspective. So back to the open mind, I think the open mind is important, and one can choose to utilize that open mind by saying, you know what, I'll wait for the EIA and hear where the professional guide us, or you can use the open mind as you're suggesting and say, listen, let us sit down, have an intellectual discussion in terms of some of the potential risks that we see, and start to make some assessments so that when the EIA comes out, if we have an open mind now, we can do our comparative analysis and say, you know, I was concerned about the boobies, but I see that they have addressed the boobies here, and the numbers that they're talking about and the loss of blah, blah, blah does not warrant my concerns.
Yes.
Or they haven't even addressed the boobies, so I know that this EIA have a fault. Something is missing here. And I think I just want to encourage everyone to do that, because we cannot be viewing human beings as the problem. Anybody you see getting out there talking about the environment that even has that tone or tenor to their voice, that human beings is the problem, I can assure you that you don't want to take guidance from them. And the same thing about someone, if all they're guiding you is how much money we're going to make without consideration to the boobies and the animals and the trees, then that person shouldn't guide you either. There has to be a proper balance in relation to looking at these projects.
Indeed. And certainly the government has opened up that opportunity for feedback from the public. They've asked the public to provide their thoughts on the 3 airport expansion projects, and certainly we are merely doing our part in order to facilitate those discussions. 745-2626. Give us a call if you have an opinion. But again, on a personal note, it's certainly my social experiment is all I'm sort of conducting right now. When we look back a few months ago, as we did on the discussion of cruise, there was no shortage of suppositions, assumptions, imaginary boogeyman's coming out of the woodwork as to what would be at risk in the absence of detailed fact. But there was a lot of commentary. We have a mirror image of the exact same conversation going on right now, albeit impacting the stayover aspect, and starting, of course, with airport expansion, all of which have their own identifiable, at first-hand, first sight, you can tell what potential risks exist in the absence of the environmental impact assessments. But again, the commentary, we can only take it on the basis of what people tell us, and of course the absence or the crickets that we have had as we have hosted this discussion in terms of feedback from the listening audience, that people clearly don't have as big of an opinion on the environmental and, I argue, financial risks to this country as it relates to stayover tourism and airport expansion as they did on cruise.
And again, I will dare...
I think that's problematic, but interesting.
I will dare say that, again, the reason why you don't have that yet is because people are waiting, and don't take it negatively, people are waiting to be influenced in one direction or another. And this is where I take serious issue with persons who exercise this undue influence over people and to fulfill their own agenda, because people are waiting in large part to be influenced. And, you know, now that everybody has voted, let's have a sober discussion. Just to give you an example, when I got involved with the cruise, one of the complaints was, you know, we're going to destroy all the coral and stuff that's down there. And I can tell you, at 55 years of age, I never dove out there. I swam in the early areas of Hogseye Bay, close to the shore, but I never went out there 75, 95 feet of water. So we paid someone, and let's remain objective now. We've already cast the vote. Paid someone to go there, tracked it with a GPS exactly where the piers were going to go. There's no coral there, Austin. The coral is to the southwest, and the coral is to the northeast. But yet, it's very easy to get people to influence their minds to believe that there is this pristine coral down there if you've never been there. So let's carry that on now to the airport project. We talk about turtle grass, and the turtles need to feed off of that grass. But have I been there? Have I went out there and saw this turtle grass for myself? And let's just say I did see turtle grass, or what is called turtle grass. Then I could probably also look up on the internet and confirm that turtles actually eat turtle grass, because it might naturally eat turtle grass. Might be called turtle grass for another reason. But then I have to go out there and look. And I have to go out there and look and confirm, are turtles actually eating the grass? So that means we have tons of turtles swimming around in North Sound, eating around the airport. So we need to keep an open mind and to be investigative about these things so that we can draw proper conclusions. Because everyone needs to understand that the decisions that we make today, and it's very, very easy to make decisions in our personal lives, in our business, and nothing different with the country. We can easily make a decision today that is going to seriously negatively impact your children, the future generations to come. Very easy. And as I've said to persons even about the gambling and the marijuana, and the list goes on, I had family members, let's put it that way, family. Again, even on the whole issue of marijuana, I've said before, if something is not good for your country, I seriously doubt that it's going to be good for the country.
Yep.
Right? And there's a reason, even if we want to say, oh, we now accept alcohol. If alcohol is so great, give it to a couple of your kids. Let them have a drink. But we don't do that. And we don't do that because we know that there's some negative ramifications to it.
Yeah.
And just because you have now passed it and made it legal, put some regulation around it, made it a financial benefit to other persons for you to get drunk, crash cars, kill people. And I pass, every time I come from East End, I pass one particular spot, and I know the individual made it home but didn't make it home.
Yes.
Okay? And this is now, it's now legal. But that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't make it good for your family, and that doesn't make it good for the country. So I just want, again, to encourage everyone, let us keep an open mind and be investigative about the things that we come before we draw our conclusions. And please be careful if you have persons that are taking one view, such as they have $1 million in their bank account and they don't need any development, when in fact your children might need the development.
Indeed.
I yield.
And, I think you made a number of valuable observations and contributions, Ellio. And I would just simply say that, to your point, there may be persons out there that don't know. They're not taking our word for it, that at the end of the Owen Roberts International Runway, the 22 acres that will be destroyed consists largely of turtle grass, because maybe you haven't seen it. So let me encourage you. There is still opportunities for you to see it firsthand and judge for yourself firsthand. Probably the quickest way you could do so without getting wet will go to Tropical Gardens. That's, the road just before you get to the King's Gym and the King's Roundabout. Follow that road to its end. Then look to the left. And that is the end of the Owen Roberts Runway. From there, you can see the North Sound. And obviously, as far as the eye can see, you can guesstimate what 22 acres looks like. And you tell me what your eyes tell you. As it relates to the existing environmental threats, yes, there is no environmental impact assessment, but we can appreciate from what we do know could come as a potential threat in these areas. And again, going on just what you know, what your eyes tell you and your brain tells you, clearly there's room for at least an opinion. As it relates to that opinion, certainly let me also remind the public that beginning today, as a matter of fact, if they are on time, about 20 minutes ago, well, maybe, 10 minutes ago, the first of 3 public meetings began across the Cayman Islands. Right now at the Owen Roberts International Airport, on the second floor conference rooms, the public meeting discussing the ORIA, or Owen Roberts International Airport expansion plans, are going on. That meeting is set to begin at 5:30 p.m. and end at 7:30 p.m. Tomorrow, the similar meetings will take place in Cayman Brac, this time at the Alexander Hotel, beginning at 5:30 p.m. And then on Thursday, the 29th of May, the meetings move to Little Cayman, in particular the Little Cayman Beach Resort, where the conversations will be held to discuss the proposed project and airport expansion plans. The Airports Authority will be there. Obviously, the government ministers will be there. I suspect the Premier, the Minister of Tourism, the Minister for Infrastructure and Works likely to be there. And if they're not there, then certainly the technocrats from the public service will be there to lay out the plans. And certainly we continue to invite the public, if you are interested in these projects, if you have a viewpoint one way or the other, or more to the point, you want to be educated on the facts that obtain on these 3 projects, this is your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, someone just sent some pictures, and I've seen a pretty decent little crowd there showing up. And just for clarity, I don't want anyone to suggest that I'm saying that there's not turtle grass there, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying turtles don't eat turtle grass. I'm just using it as an example to say that we do our own investigation, we check it out, and to your point, we can start to make up our minds then, so that by the time the EIA is finished or is completed, we can now start to do our own comparisons and say, this seems to have been overlooked, or wow, they're giving me a piece of information I didn't realize.
Yes, indeed. Yep. But we also got to be able to connect the dots. And again, this is based on conversations that have taken place in this society over things that our society says
is important
and certainly needs to be addressed. When we look at increasing the stayover visitors from the all-time threshold of 500,000 to perhaps doubling that by the year 2035, we haven't been able to do it in 40, 50 years, but apparently by expanding the runway and bringing in larger aircraft, we will get past the 500,000 stayover. Not only do the environmental risks obtain, but traffic, road infrastructure, road improvements, new roads, that will be impacted. Hotels, we talk about the fear that Cayman, particularly Grand Cayman, is facing overdevelopment. Before you can think about bringing in bigger planes and more passengers, you got to ask yourself, where are they going to lay their heads? We do not have the available room stock in order to accomplish that, even with the new hotels that are going up. So we have to anticipate more, not less development taking place in the Cayman Islands, and we have to reconcile that. So I simply throw it out there that in the absence of a scientifically proven, documented environmental impact assessment, there are things that we can assume will be contained in that document. And if we can assume it'll be contained in that document based on factual comments that you know have existed in this community, since, as one Caymanian would say, time immemorial, then clearly one can speculate as to what sort of threats the government might want to consider in the mitigation of it.
Well, this is why, again, a lot of the arguments that I heard against Cruz made absolutely no sense. It just seemed to have been persons that look for anything they can hold on to, because one of the things that was used is the fact that that's not where we make our money. We make our money on stayovers. We need to be investing in stayovers. But to me, if you are concerned about the environment and the changing the landscape of Cayman, my friend, a ship coming and leaving in the evening and everything's gone is totally different than the hotels and stuff that are being built. And to your point, the road infrastructure and everything else that has to be brought in place to accommodate it. But, we have to decide as a country what we want to do.
Indeed. And let me just throw another log on the fire. There's also the financial risks. We start with the environmental impact assessments. We know that environmental impact assessments are required on all three projects. The authorities, civil aviation, the authorities, the government have all stated unequivocally that there will be environmental impact assessments conducted and obviously presented in the public domain at some future period on these three projects. So the public can look forward to that, but they're not going to be free. And if we look at it on the low end, what the outline business case published in June 2023 assumed, each of these environmental impact assessments will cost between $1.4 and $1.5 million. If there's three of them, that's $4.5 million just in environmental impact assessments. We anticipate, if we use, again, past performance as a guide, most of these environmental impact assessments will cost north of $2 million. So it's between $4.5 million and $6 million at best. Again, that is something to also consider. When we look at the projects in totality, what is at stake? $860 million first cost for the country to come up with itself through borrowing and finance. If you add the financing costs, you're looking north of $1.5 billion out of the taxpayer. So all of these things are areas in which we know or we can assume will take place as part of these developments. What do you think? 745-2626 is the number.
And again, as a side note, I'm just going to encourage all of you who are listening, pay attention, please, to all of the media houses, particularly the Compass, etc., and see what guidance they give you in this one.
Indeed. Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening there, Mr. Austin, Mr. Ellio.
Good
Mario, the bank here.
Good evening, Mr. Mario. Just for the record, we got about 2.5 minutes. You're encouraged to start, and if that's not sufficient, then you can obviously join us when we come back. But go ahead.
Oh, okay, let me start quickly, and I'll try to finish quickly. You talked about the extension of the runway. You talked about the long-term plan. I heard Ellio just mentioned about we need to decide what we want to do, and I couldn't agree more. We definitely need a long-term national development plan. I know several of the groups, parties in the last election talked about it, and the progressives, when they were in power up until 2021, they started this Plan Cayman project, which was an updating of the National Development Plan, or Development Plan, under the Development and Planning Act. The PAC government got in, and they pretty much put it on hold, it seemed, and then they changed it from a system of having 6 zones or 6 districts into, I think it was 11. And in their plan that they rolled out about 2 years ago, they say that their projection was that each of these 11 zones would take 6 months to do. So it would take pretty much then, that would be like 5.5 years to get the plan done. And by 5.5 years, at this rate, it would be far too late. We would have been overbuilt and overdeveloped and everything else without a plan. So I think that, I know there's a lot of stuff on the table, gentlemen, but I think I want to encourage you all to keep on hammering this idea of making a priority the national development plan to see where we're going, where we're going to go from 20 years from now, 50 years from now, in terms of all of these things: infrastructure, environment, education, society, finance, debt, population, everything else. So I'll leave you there. I think my time is probably up. So I just want to leave the point: the need to have a plan. Those who fail to plan to fail. And we got to get a plan.
Thank you very much for your contribution as usual.
Oh, thank you very much, Mario. And a very important observation. Before we jump from one lily pad to the next, we also have been discussing exactly that point. Should we be starting at a development plan before we start proposing the impacts and the costs associated with necessary infrastructure upgrades? What do we want the country to look like?
Start with the end in mind. What do you want to achieve?
Start with the end in mind, indeed. And if mass tourism wasn't what you wanted with cruise, then maybe we should start with a plan before we start with the investment. But we do need a pause. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come next on Bobo.
Bobo.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC is the world's most trusted news source.
And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman.
On FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, this is the BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. President Trump's administration has ordered its embassies abroad to pause new applications for student and exchange visitor visas as it prepares to expand social media vetting of foreign students. This is part of Mr. Trump's campaign against some of America's best-known universities. Here's our North America editor, Sarah Smith.
Officials are going to be combing through the social media history of student applicants and presumably could decide to exclude them if certain political views have been expressed online. For instance, some students who were already in the United States have had their visas revoked because they took part in pro-Palestinian protests on university campuses last year. And we just don't know if something like having been really heavily critical of Donald Trump himself might lead you to be being refused a student visa.
Palestinians have stormed an aid distribution hub in Gaza, backed by the US and Israel, that has just started operating near the city of Rafah. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said it had managed to hand out 8,000 food boxes before the centre was overrun by crowds. From Jerusalem, Barbara Plett-Asher told us what happened.
A lot of people showed up at the aid site today, Tuesday, and it seems like it wasn't very well organized. According to people who were there, they didn't have a system about how the boxes would be distributed. And after waiting for a while, people started to push forward and just begin to take what they could get. And then there was gunfire, which we now know was the Israelis firing in the air, is what they say. And then so some people started running away, but others just kept pushing forward to try to grab the boxes. And so it was complete chaos for a while.
Texas, the U.S.'s second most populous state, has passed a new law requiring Apple and Google to verify the age of their users on their app stores. Starting next year, anyone under 18 will need a parent's approval to download apps or make in-app purchases. Our North America technology correspondent Lily Jamali has the details.
Under the law, minors will need parental approval before they can download apps or make in-app purchases. Texas is following the lead of Utah, another conservative state, which passed a similar law earlier this year. But the Texas law will likely affect many more people. It's the second most populous state in the U.S. The bill was opposed by Apple CEO Tim Cook, whom the Wall Street Journal reports called Texas Governor Greg Abbott earlier this month in a bid to stop the bill's passage.
King Charles has delivered a speech in English and French at the opening of the Canadian Parliament. The King, who is Canada's head of state, said Canadians were facing changes that are unprecedented in their lifetimes. He said relationships with partners, including the United States, were changing, stressing the sovereignty of both nations. This is the latest world news from the BBC. The French lower house of Parliament has voted in favour of legislation that could eventually grant people the right to assisted dying. President Macron welcomed the decision as an important step. It would allow people with a terminal disease or who suffer from constant pain to be given lethal medication. Critics argue that patients might feel under pressure to take their own lives. The bodies of 11 people have been found on a boat washed up on a beach in the Caribbean country of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Local police said several passports were found among the severely decomposed remains, apparently from Mali. The authorities have yet to conduct formal identification. The South African actor Presley Chweneyagae, who has gained international recognition for his leading role in the 2005 film Tsotsi, has died at the age of 40. The film won South Africa's first ever Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. Mr. Chweneyagae's award-winning performance catapulted him to international stardom. Wildlife researchers have published the first known photo of one of Africa's most endangered species. The Upemba lechwe is an extremely rare type of antelope. 10 of them were spotted during an aerial survey in the south of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The researchers managed to capture an image of one of the animals before they ran away. A large container ship that ran aground and almost crashed into a fjordside house in Norway last week has been refloated. Johan Helberg, the house owner, had this to say after he watched the ship being pulled back into the water.
I doubt I'll ever experience anything quite like this again. I wouldn't have traded this experience for anything. I wish more people could experience something like this. Get a ship in your garden and you'll find life worth living.
And that brings us to the end of BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM as we move into our final half hour. The phone lines were open, 745-2626. The discussion on the table, as it has been for the last 3 days, including last week, is the current airport expansion plans, the public meetings that began today and are ongoing right now at Owen Roberts International Airport and continue on Wednesday and again on Thursday in Cameron Brack and Little Cayman, respectively. If you have a comment, you have an opinion, then by all means, we want to hear from you. We do have a caller on the line. Let's take that call now. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you call this number you're seeing now?
Can I what?
The number this number that I just call that I'm calling from.
Yes.
Can you see it on your screen?
Yes, I can, but I can't call out from here. So,
no, you do. This number that you have there now, that you see there now.
Yes.
Call us on that number, please.
Okay. Can you wait until after the show's over?
Certainly. If it takes up tomorrow, we're all gonna wait.
All
Just
right.
for you, Ellio.
Okay, no problem. We will definitely reach out to you after the show. All right.
All right.
Thank you, darling.
You're very welcome, my dear. Thank you so much.
And I do want to add to what you were saying earlier on, Mr. Harris, in relation to this issue. People will be hearing about this issue for days to come. It is something that is important. There's consultation processes, as my colleague has highlighted several times, and these discussions will be continuing on for at least the next several days. And I'm sure the discussion will go on even longer than that. And the reason is because we have decisions to make.
Indeed. In the meantime, the silence is deafening in terms of the public's viewpoint on the project, but all we can do is open the door.
Hold on. Let me see if I can find something here.
You got a text?
No. I want to help you out here.
Okay, fair enough. 745-2626 is the number. 9 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock is the time. Or you can reach out to our version of the 1-800 line by dialing our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, you can either share your viewpoints in the form of a WhatsApp audio note, or you can text us in a traditional WhatsApp text message. Either way, if received, we will share your views, comments, and or opinions live on air and add it to our ongoing discussion. And as we stated, as it relates to the necessary airport infrastructure, I will just go on the record again that both Ellio and I, as individuals, support the necessity of investing in our infrastructure in order to maintain, if not enhance, our overall tourism product. We believe it was necessary for cruise. We believe it's necessary in the stayover side in the airports. But we recognize, just like there are legitimate perhaps concerns on the cruise side, there are legitimate concerns also. I want that. That's what we hear from the listening audience. Crickets coming from the phone lines as it relates to feedback on the airport expansion project. And I just stated, we open the door. And again, we support it, but there are some concerns, some legitimate threats that we need not wait for an environmental impact assessment to tell us. All we need is our own eyes and our own brain to guide us, similar to the conversations that took place on the cruise side. And again, my little social experiment, just for my own personal amusement, is that whilst no one needed a little pesky thing called facts to obviously criticize or vote against the cruise side, not a soul, not a little peep has been shared in terms of the concerns on the air side and land side.
What shall I ever do with you, Mr. Harris?
What shall you ever do? It's just a social experiment. That's all.
Just want to say that we should be having, again, reminding everyone that tomorrow we're going to have a special guest here in the program, none other than Mr. Nick Joseph, learned individual in the law, immigration expert, if you'd like, and many other things. Amongst other things, a wonderful Caymanian. We should have him here in the program starting around 5 o'clock tomorrow. We want to discuss the term limits, the new introduction there coming from the government. And again, we know that there's a lot of specifics that are missing, but either way, based on what we do have, I think we have something. To my colleague's point, we can still use that good old nougat up there, and we can start processing in our mind based on what we've heard, what we're expecting, what we see, what are some of the potential benefits, what are some of the possibilities in terms of risk and harms. And that discussion should be taking place right here on your favorite talk show, Straight Talk, tomorrow starting at 5 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We look forward to that discussion with Mr. Joseph. Certainly it is a hot button discussion as it relates to immigration reform. We continue to congratulate the National Coalition for Caymanian Government, the new coalition government that are currently working their way through their first 100 days in office, fulfilling the campaign promise that immigration reform would feature as a top priority. And again, we commend the government for leading by example, seeking to balance the tables in the public sector with a term limit policy that has existed in the private sector for some time. That, of course, we understand will commence January of next year. In the meantime, until we get there, we will, like we're trying to have on the airport expansion project, again, some commentary from members of the public, particularly those experts who have been speaking on the topic, to share their views. One, certainly, our guest tomorrow has been quoted in the media saying he supports it, but also argues that it doesn't go far enough. Well, potentially, these discussions that we engage in now will serve as guidance to the government when they go to the parliament to both present the legislation that would give authority to this new policy that calls for term limits of the public service, similar to that which has existed in the private sector for years. We likewise note that we anticipate further changes or something on the private sector side, for which we will hear from the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Michael Miles, which has also not yet happened, but we anticipate that will in short order. For the time being, we express our gratitude and certainly give our compliments to the government for moving forward and not forgetting their election promises as they shared with us, certainly during the election campaign. We think it is a first good step or a step in the right direction, and we applaud them for doing so.
Yeah.
At 14 minutes past the hour, 6 o'clock, just time for one other observation we also see coming from the media. Despite the Royal Cayman Island Police Service's concerns or viewpoints that the service is critically understaffed, these were their remarks back in early May or the 14th, 15th of May, when we started discussing the crime statistics, which show overall crime up 7%, but things like violent crime, domestic crime, also up at troubling levels. And we heard from the Commissioner of Police identifying, either he directly said it or two of his colleagues, which were also present with him at that press conference, saying that had they had more staff and more resources, perhaps these statistics would be much higher. But in any event, as high or low as the crime statistics may be, depending on how you take it, it is still considered the best in the world. But the RCIPS, again, lamenting on the fact that they are about 27 constables short of a full complement, and clearly identifying the need to improve their staffing requirements. But in the face of that, we see in the media that 8 members of the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, despite being short-staffed, mind you, have deployed 8 officers to Anguilla to support the rising gang tensions in our fellow British overseas territory of Anguilla. The Royal Cayman Islands, according to the Royal Cayman Islands Facebook page, the officers have been sent because the RAPF is the Royal Anguilla Police Force, is in need of support to tackle an escalation in serious crime. This deployment is being funded and supported by the United Kingdom and not the taxpayer of the Cayman Islands. So I suppose that is a bit of good news, but you can't escape the irony that on the one hand,
we're already
short-staffed. We have our own crime problem, but despite that, we are sparing 8 presumably qualified, capable officers to go help Anguilla. And again, we have no problem, no objection to helping others in need, but we always maintain that, before you can help others, you got to help yourself. Look after your own.
The charity starts at home.
That's right.
Well, it is interesting to hear that the Caymanian Commissioner of Police, I will stress, Caymanian Commissioner of Police, is saying that we are short of staff. I would imagine maybe short of funding. I have no idea. And I say that because I know for sure when we had the foreign commissioners there, that wasn't the case. I remember our government at one point in time giving an excess some $55 million and full complement of staff, rah, rah, rah. So I don't know why they're short. Let's see if something's done about it. Do you have a call?
No, we had a call, but the call dropped off. The Police Association chairman, according to the media, Inspector Rudolph Gordon, says he won't put a number on the need for needed officers, but he will state that we are, quote unquote, critically understaffed. Then we have Superintendent Jones quoted in the media saying that when it comes to police patrol officers, it has become sort of a death march in terms of the number of officers that they have lost from the service, citing things like salary as being one of the reasons why the RCIPS has suffered a shortage or a depletion in constables. He went on to point out, though, in terms of the recruitment side, we started off with 500 candidates and ended up graduating, of that 500, only 9. So the rate of attrition or the selection process, whatever the reason, 500 candidates, only 9 graduated RCIPS training. Not a good sign, but clearly in the viewpoint of both the commissioner and his senior constables and I guess senior command, the RCIPS is critically understaffed in need of resources.
It definitely, this really needs to be looked into. I mean, it's a pretty serious issue when you talk about not having the proper amount of resources for the police. Got a call?
You got a caller on the line. Let's take it. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
I'm back again. I say foolishness about understaffed for police. They won't get more to have government to pay more money and they do nothing. Because they do nothing. How they can source another place, like you guys say, like they say charity begin at home. If we shorthand how they can help another country, and I hope that they do better service out there than what they do here, because I'm not going to say too much, but just this week I had to call police for my niece, and they could have killed her. The stupidness that they went there and asked her, and don't care whether she got a mental issue or not, they were asking her all kinds of stupidness, but that beyond the fact. 3 guys had stalked the car that took her home, and they were by her apartment, and one of the guys got into the place, and I was still on the line, and they were asking her all kinds of foolishness. So they are useless. They only want money. They're not worrying about people protection or not, and whether she mental or not. Somebody can kill you because you got a mental issue or whatever. Yes, she's on medication. She suffers anxiety and stuff, but that's beyond the point. And I explained everything to them, and then they were telling me, because I called Bontown first, and they say I had to call town because they were in prospect. And they went then I was done one thing. 2 or 3 and went then, they were asking and telling me to get off the line after asking me why is that. I said, I'm her aunt. She's my brother, daughter, oldest child. But that's beyond the point. They went then and I did one thing. She had to run out and wait till her man come from work, because he works at CUC, and they were doing work out in town. He wasn't going to get off till 12:30. And the person was up in the apartment. One of the guys was up in the apartment. Mm-hmm. And then I was done one thing. Nothing. Yeah. And that's true, is Christ died for sinner. Nothing. After and then she kept telling me, call and tell them send another one for them to come. Now done nothing. She said they come, they never even had nothing. Never even had baton or nothing. And the guy had knife. Nothing. Useless. When you say that we have the police force, but we have no action. They're not gonna guts. They need to be like them Spaniards, Honduras, or whatever. Them police are coward. They're the cowardice thing. In Jamaica too, the police are coward, but the soldiers is the one got a cojones, as the Spaniard would say. Cause I've been down there and I see a thing down there, and the police run when the guys swing the machete thing. It was the soldiers that had the balls.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and for sharing your views with us. 745-2626 is
I had
the
to
number.
chuckle. I had to chuckle with that style of talking.
Yeah,
as sure as Christ died for sinners.
She tells it to you straight. The name on the door is straight talking. We love that caller. We really do.
As sure as Christ. Austin, I'm trying to finish this. As sure as Christ died for the sinners. Oh, Lord, I can use that one from now on. Austin, I'm telling you the
too
fact.
fine a point on it, but as sure as Christ died for the
As sure as
sinners,
Christ died for the sinners,
these
Austin,
ones are
this needs to
useless.
change. Hey, thanks for making us laugh today.
Yeah,
Hey.
thanks for making us laugh.
But you know, I don't know. I mean, why? For example, I guess the commissioner of police had to yield because the UK is asking him to do it, right?
Yeah, well, that's how it is.
And I don't know if they can ask. Sounds like more like a little bit of coercion in there. Do it or else.
Yeah, I
And
just hope crime don't break free and came on that we turn out to be even shorter.
we ate short of people, right?
Yeah, exactly. So charity begins at home. We acknowledge and we support. Obviously, giving aid to our Caribbean brothers and sisters in the region.
Yeah.
Certainly, when it goes into the hurricane season, we have done our part. We have contributed aid, respective of the government administration. We believe in helping other people because that's just who we are.
But what I wanted to ask there,
again, charity begins.
why not
at
the
home.
regiment? We have a regiment. I mean, they're not on the ground per se every single day. Why not the regiment? Why not some members of the regiment?
Yeah. But I can only assume that because the escalating crime is largely related to gang-related crime, then the level of violence is that's involved, and I suppose one wouldn't want to put our otherwise junior military young men and women.
Well, I hope that's not the case because
in harm's way.
Those are the ones that would be allowed to, or let's say, the regiment in Cayman is the one that's going to have to deal with the issue of running around with machine guns if there's some kind of a, how can I put it, uprising or whatever it is. So I would hope that they're the ones
civil unrest.
Like when they bring those taxes that I keep talking about.
Yeah.
And tell people they want to tax their land, that's probably going to cause a little bit of some uprising, and you're going to have to deal with it with machine guns. So I would hope that they're there. Now, again, my understanding is of clearly the regiment, which is a nice word now, modern word for army. The army, at the end of the day, one might say is not the fitting thing, but it just a question that begs my mind. Why at the end of the day would you not utilize those persons to be able to assist if the commissioner of police is expressing that we're so short of resources? And I would imagine if you're short on numbers of bodies, you're probably short on funding as well.
No.
Either way, it needs to be dealt with.
Indeed. With the 4 minutes we have remaining and staying with the uniform services, of course, last week we joined persons in the community in celebrating the fact that prison officer Darren Watson, who had been accused of smuggling drugs into the prison, had his case before the courts dismissed. He was acquitted of all wrongdoing, and obviously that was good news for the public. But regrettably, though Mr. Watson has simply said he wants to get back to his career and the rest of his life, his challenges are not yet over. Apparently, a spokesperson for Her Majesty's Prison Service has acknowledged that whilst Darren Watson has been cleared of misconduct, his continued role within the prison service will be guided by internal policies, legal counsel, and ongoing commitment to maintaining public trust. So there is, in fact, an internal investigation that is currently underway, and at the conclusion of that internal investigation, they will determine whether or not Mr. Darren Watson, prison officer, can, in fact, return to his career, having just been cleared of charges against him. So, as we say, we like to put hurdles in front of our own people. I thought the courts out-trumped, the internal matters, but the prison service saying that, yes, we acknowledge he was cleared, but we still aren't yet convinced.
One would have thought that even if that was the case and there was some kind of internal investigation, that the courts would have waited to get that information first.
One would assume. But again, I can only sell it to you as cheaply as I bought it. There is an article, again, contained in the pages of the Cayman Compass with the title, Police Service Speaks Out After Officer Cleared of Drugs Misconduct. And in that commentary that is added, the prison service can confirm that any decisions about Mr. Watson's continued role will be guided by internal policies, legal counsel, and their ongoing commitment to maintaining public trust and institutional integrity, as if to suggest that the jury is still out, at least internally at the prison, whether or not Mr. Watson should return to duties, and arguably if he has done anything wrong. The court says he hasn't, but internally they are not quite yet there. So that is rather disturbing, but it is in the news, and as we say, we share with you the news that should matter to you, and you can go on about the rest of your life, trusting in us to provide you those details.
Just those statements sound like that might possibly be another legal issue.
Yes.
Because you're definitely even casting another net over the gentleman.
Yes.
I don't know. I'll leave that for the lawyers.
We leave that for the lawyers, indeed. As my colleague pointed out, tomorrow, Wednesday, we will be broaching the subject of immigration reform, and our guest in the studio
term limits.
Will be Mr. Nick Joseph, as we look at his opinion and thoughts on the term limit policy for the public service that was announced last week, which, of course, we shared with you on this program, the commentary from the Honorable Premier and Honorable Deputy Governor on that point. Tomorrow, Mr. Nick Joseph will be our guest in studios at 5 o'clock, and we encourage you to tune in and be a part of that conversation when it happens. 27 seconds remaining in the program. Any quick thoughts before we wrap up?
Just want to say thank you very much for joining, and of course, special our caller who made us all laugh. As sure as Jesus Christ died for the sinners. We appreciate you joining us. We'll see you tomorrow right here in Straight Talk.
Absolutely. Reminder, Straight Talk airs every weekday evening at 4:30 to 6:30 right here only on Bobo 103.1 FM.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Bobo 103.1. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
K-Man, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for moving or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Hello, pet parents. We're K-Man Vets, K-Man's most advanced veterinary clinic providing quality care and services. We are